Imagine auditioning for every one of your father's films and being turned away every time. That was Scott Eastwood's reality. While Clint Eastwood amassed Oscars and global fame, Scott was pouring drinks and parking cars to scrape by. Hollywood saw him as just another aspiring actor, not the son of an icon. Using his mother's surname, Reeves, Scott fought to earn his place without relying on his father's legacy. But rejection was relentless. Even for Clint's blockbuster American Sniper, Scott didn't get a call. By his mid-30s, battered by Hollywood's grind, he considered abandoning it all for a firefighter's life. His story is one of resilience, family secrets, and a defining moment of violence that reshaped his view of his father. This is the untold truth of Scott Eastwood, a man who refused to coast on his father's name and fought to stand on his own. A hidden beginning. On March 21, 1986, in Monterey, California, Scott Clinton Reeves was born into a legacy cloaked in secrecy. His father, Clint Eastwood, was a Hollywood titan, fresh off directing Pale Rider and commanding the industry's spotlight. But Scott's birth certificate bore no trace of the Eastwood name. His mother, Jacelyn Reeves, a flight attendant, met Clint during a brief affair in the mid-1980s. At the time, Clint was publicly tied to actress Sondra Locke, who believed their relationship was exclusive. She remained unaware of Scott and his younger sister, Catherine, born in 1988, until a lawsuit years later exposed Clint's hidden family. Raised by Jacelyn in Carmel by the Sea, where Clint had once been mayor, Scott grew up far from Hollywood's glitz. His mother worked tirelessly, a single parent supporting 2 children while Clint earned millions and walked red carpets with other women. At school, Scott was just another kid, his father's identity a guarded secret. This gave him anonymity but also left him grappling with questions. Why was his father absent? Why did Clint's other children, some raised in luxury, have a father while he did not? Jacelyn's sacrifices taught Scott the value of hard work early. He mowed lawns and took odd jobs as a teenager. At 10, Jacelyn relocated the family to Hawaii, far from Clint's world. There, Scott surfed, played sports, and lived modestly, but the truth lingered. His father was a distant legend, a ghost shaping his life from afar, a childhood in the shadows. Scott's childhood was nothing like the privileged upbringing expected of a Hollywood icon's son. In Carmel by the Sea, he lived a modest life defined by his mother's sacrifices. While Clint commanded $15 million per film in the 1990s, Scott's world revolved around simple meals and tight budgets. The move to Hawaii at age 10 offered freedom but also isolation. He blended in with friends who knew nothing of his father, but beneath the surface, Scott carried the weight of an absent legend. As a teenager, his anger surfaced. He got into fights, faced school suspensions, and struggled with emotions he couldn't name. It wasn't just rebellion. It was the pain of knowing his father was a global star yet a stranger to him. When Jacelyn moved the family back to California in 2000, Scott attended Carmel High, where Clint's legacy loomed large. Classmates began to whisper about his father. Some treated him like royalty. Others taunted him, assuming he'd get a free pass because of his name. But Scott rejected that. He worked construction and waited tables, determined to earn his way. At Loyola Marymount University, he studied communications while secretly taking acting classes. Still, he auditioned as Scott Reeves, refusing to use the Eastwood name. He tried out for nearly every one of Clint's films and was rejected every time. Clint's rule was clear: no favors, no shortcuts. Scott had to prove himself, and that meant years of grinding alone, watching his father and half-siblings thrive in a world that felt out of reach. The Hollywood hustle. When Scott entered Hollywood, he didn't inherit his father's empire, he faced a gauntlet. Bartending and parking cars paid his bills while he chased roles under the name Scott Reeves. Casting directors saw him as unremarkable, and early parts were fleeting background roles in low-budget films like Pride and Player 5150, often straight to video. In 2006, he landed a small part in Clint's Flags of Our Fathers as Private Roberto Lunsford, credited as Scott Reeves. It was a minor victory, but he remained invisible. Clint offered no help, even for American Sniper, a film that swept the box office and Oscars. Scott's frustration grew. He wanted one chance to prove himself. But Clint's mantra was unrelenting. Earn it or don't. Years of bartending out-earned his acting gigs. Yet Scott persisted. Every rejection, every small role was a step toward resilience. Those grueling years weren't just about survival. They were forging a work ethic that would define his eventual rise. Breaking through. By 2009, Scott's persistence began to pay off. He landed a role in Clint's Invictus, this time as Scott Eastwood, shedding the Reeves name. It wasn't a lead, but it marked a shift. In 2011, he took a bold risk, starring in 3 horror films, including Texas Chainsaw 3D. Filming in Louisiana, he embraced the lead role despite never seeing the original. It was his chance to carry a movie, and he seized it. In 2014, Fury changed everything. Playing Sergeant Miles in a tank crew alongside Brad Pitt and Shia LaBeouf, Scott endured grueling military training to operate real Sherman tanks. The ensemble won the National Board of Review's Best Cast Award, and critics finally saw him as a serious actor. In 2015, he starred in The Longest Ride, a Nicholas Sparks romance, performing his own bull riding stunts. That same year, he defied advice and appeared as Taylor Swift's love interest in her Wildest Dreams music video. The steamy 1950s style shoot went viral, amassing millions of views and thrusting Scott into the spotlight. He was no longer just Clint's son, he was a name in his own right, a devastating loss. As Scott's career gained traction, tragedy struck. In 2014, his girlfriend Jewel Brangman, 26, died in a minor car accident. Driving a rented 2001 Honda Civic, she was part of a small collision. The crash should have been minor, but a recalled Takata airbag exploded, sending shrapnel through her neck, severing her spine. She died instantly. Scott was shattered. In a 2017 interview, he revealed the depth of his grief, admitting he couldn't face Jewel's father, who sought answers. The guilt and pain made relationships and trust harder. Before this loss, Scott's friend Paul Walker had given him a lifeline: Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Introduced in the late 2000s, the martial art taught Scott discipline and humility. After Paul's death in 2013 and Jewel's in 2014, Jiu-Jitsu became his sanctuary. The mats didn't care about fame or failure. They demanded focus and resilience, helping Scott survive the darkest moments of his life. Rising star. By 2017, Scott's career soared. He joined the Fast and the Furious as Little Nobody, a government agent in a franchise marked by Paul Walker's legacy. The film grossed over $1 billion, cementing Scott's global presence. In 2018, he led Pacific Rim Uprising, a $300 million blockbuster, proving he could carry a franchise. But his defining role came in 2019 with The Outpost, a raw depiction of an Afghanistan war battle. Playing a soldier under siege, Scott's performance earned a 93% Rotten Tomatoes score and praise for its authenticity. Critics noted his voice carried Clint's grit, especially in lines like, "No, not today." Hollywood finally saw him as more than a legacy. He was an actor who had earned his place, building his own legacy. Beyond acting, Scott sought to create something of his own. In 2019, he co-founded Made Here, a clothing brand focused on American manufacturing. It wasn't about fame, but about honoring workers and reviving local industry. His personal life, however, carried the weight of his father's tough love. At 16, Scott faced Clint's wrath after leaving his 14-year-old sister at a party. Clint didn't lecture. He pinned Scott against a wall, struck him, and made his expectations clear. That moment shaped Scott's understanding of responsibility. When Clint refused to fund a $8,000 truck, Scott learned to rely on himself. In 2022, he turned down a 3-picture Warner Brothers deal, including Suicide Squad, because the terms felt wrong. Clint's advice, "Trust your gut," guided him. Scott chose integrity over fame, a testament to the lessons his father instilled. A man at a crossroads. Now in his late 30s, Scott faces a pivotal moment. Burned out by Hollywood's grind, he considered becoming a firefighter at 35, a plan born from years of rejection and bartending out-earning acting. Yet he persists. In 2025, he stars in Regretting You, a Colleen Hoover adaptation with Allison Williams and Dave Franco, and Stolen Girl, a true story thriller with Kate Beckinsale. He's also set for Lucky Strike, a World War II drama, and Wind River, the next chapter, tackling dark themes on a Native American reservation. These roles reflect his pursuit of meaning over fame. Off-screen, jiu-jitsu keeps him grounded, a gift from Paul Walker. Scott dreams of a family but fears the toll of his career. At 94, Clint remains a towering figure, sharing rare stories of old Hollywood with his son. Scott cherishes these moments, knowing time is finite. The question remains, can he fully escape his father's shadow? What's certain is that Scott Eastwood has fought for every step, crafting a legacy not just as Clint's son, but as a man who built his own path.